The following is a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.
Drivers, start your engines. Pull those belts down tight one more time, warm up those tires, hit your marks, and let's go racing, boys and girls. Nascar, Indycar, Formula One, Formula E, and NHRA Racing Talk. This is the Championship Racing Network. Now here is your hosts, Steve West and Matt Nicholson, with producer John Myers.
Yeah, the gang is all here as I wrestle with a microphone for some reason. I'll fix that during the first break. I'll just let you know that. Welcome on in. The trio is indeed in studio on this 4th of July weekend. Hope you've had a safe and a happy one so far. We welcome you in and, plenty to get to here. Silly season is in full force. We get to deal with signings in Formula One, IndyCar, and NASCAR. Stick around for that. We do have an update on John Force. We're going to keep you updated on how the 16-time Funny Car champion is doing health-wise. Got changes in the front offices of both Formula E and NASCAR. Got a racing facility giving details on a major upgrade program. Could an Xfinity Series driver be on a hotter seat than what we originally thought? It's beginning to look that way. And could we be seeing more than one rivalry brewing in the Cup Series? Got all that and so much more when we get into the show that goes green next.
Stay right here for more on the Championship Racing Network. tires and 2 cans of fuel, and we're back to more racing action on the Championship Racing Network.
Welcome in. Steve West, Matt Nicholson, producer John Myers with you this morning. Again, 4th of July weekend. Hopefully you still got all your fingers and toes after the 4th.
Before we slam it to first and mash the gas,
Sure.
Just a quick note. I got 2 daughters, 2 July babies.
Oh, yeah.
I'd like to wish them a happy birthday. Savannah, Kayla.
Here.
Happy birthday to the both of them.
One was Tuesday and one is Monday.
There you go.
So there you go.
Nicely
Okay,
done.
done.
Yeah, happy birthday to them.
Now let's step on the gas.
Yeah, we got plenty to get to here and a lot of conversation that'll go along with it, I'm sure. Mitch Evans claiming the pole for the Formula E race last Saturday, sets a new series record at the Portland International Raceway, but the speed that he showed in qualifying actually kind of failed him in the race. Meantime, it was Antonio Felix da Costa starting 4th and methodically moving to the front, claiming his 2nd win in a row. He beat out Robin Freins to the line by less than half a second. Jean-Eric Verne 3rd, then Eduardo Mortara. Let's see if I can fit that in early this morning. Nico Muller, Jake Dennis, Sam Bird, then your pole sitter Evans fading all the way back to 8th. Stoffel Van Dorn 9th, Pascal Wehrlein 10th. We'll deal with the points after race number 2, which was run last Sunday. I don't know what it is. Cole Custer, who was able to win a number of races last year and claim the championship last year, might be feeling like he's a man bitten by a whole lot of bad luck.
Yep.
He's so close, yet so far. Custer was leading coming to a restart with less than 50 laps to go, drifted out a little bit too high. Moonlighter John Hunter Nemechek runs through the open door, takes the lead, leads the rest of the way. He gets the win on Saturday in Nashville. That's his 2nd of the year. Chandler Smith claims 2nd, trailed by Jesse Love, Austin Hill, Moonlighter Noah Gragson coming in there as well with Riley Erbst, AJ Allmendinger, Justin Allgaier. Cole Custer fading back to 9th on the afternoon, and Sam Mayer completes the top 10. So with a Moonlighter winning, no new winners, those locked into the playoffs, remaining with 2 wins, Chandler Smith, Austin Hill, Sam Mayer, Shane Van Gisbergen, got a win for Justin Allgaier and Jesse Love. They're in. Cole Custer does lead the way in points, and he does seem pretty comfortable there. His teammate, Riley Erbst, is right behind him, then A.J. Allmendinger, Sheldon Creed, Parker Kligerman, and Sammy Smith. Now, Smith's hold on the 12th and final playoff spot in the Xfinity Series is a very tenuous 11 points over Ryan Sieg. So I'm not comfortable calling this at all, except for maybe Custer and Erbst. Maybe.
I could go with that, yeah.
All right.
Yep. I agree.
At least we're in agreement there. Chaos with just a few laps to go in Austria led to a bit of a surprise winner in Formula One. As the laps were winding down, Max Verstappen and Lando Norris were battling it out for the lead when they actually got into each other, forced Norris to end his day early. We talked about this during the podcast, which actually came down a day early this week because we were all kind of getting prepared for the 4th of July holiday weekend on Wednesday afternoon, so we did it on Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
And you were able to actually watch this race. I wasn't able to, unfortunately.
Yep.
We'll start with the fact that it's not like they were on the last lap. These two are battling for position with what, 10-ish laps to go?
Yeah, 9 or 10 to go, yeah. There was plenty of time left.
Yeah, it's kind of forcing the issue there. This incident, it slows Verstappen significantly. He got to go into the pits. He changes tires. He gets back out there, and he finishes inside the top 10. We'll get into that. Lando Norris ending his day. You seem to think that based upon what you saw, obviously we don't necessarily know the whole story, but based upon what you saw, you were kind of curious as to why they retired the car for Lando Norris.
Yeah, because the only thing I could visibly see is Lando's left rear was down. No, excuse me. Lando's right rear was down while Max's left rear was down. Unless there was something that was bent within the suspension, because when they got back on the track, Max was a little perturbed, peeved, however you want to call it, and he swerved over and made contact with him.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't visibly see anything that was broken on the body on Lando's car. So it kind of had me a little bit puzzled because Max was able to keep going, ended up with a top 5. Lando didn't. To when it looked to me, Lando had had less damage than Max had.
I don't know.
It was weird.
Yeah. Either way, we'll get back to this particular incident during the news because this isn't all that there is to it. Verstappen again slowed significantly. George Russell's able to inherit the lead. He goes on to claim his second career Formula One win. Oscar Piastri also benefiting. He gets a second place finish. Third goes to Carlos Sainz. Fourth, Lewis Hamilton. Verstappen, as you noted, able to salvage fifth place result. Nico Hülkenberg in sixth, trailed by Sergio Perez, Kevin Magnussen, and Daniel Ricciardo. Ricciardo being the biggest beneficiary of the collision. That would be Pierre Gasly, credited with 10th. He gets a championship point at Norris's expense. Max Verstappen continues to lead on points. I know we're all shocked by that. Now 237 to 156 over Norris. 150 for Charles Leclerc. Carlos Sainz now 135. You got 118 for Sergio Perez. Oscar Piastri's got 112. With the win, George Russell climbs into the 100-point club, now with 111. Lewis Hamilton's got 85, got 41 for Fernando Alonso. Yuki Tsunoda trails him, but needs binoculars to see him. He's only got 19th.
Yeah. Red
Bull continues to lead the Constructors' Cup points. 355, then 291 for Ferrari. Then you got McLaren 268, 196 for Mercedes. Aston Martin's got 58, V-Carb 30. Haas F1 scoring double points, does jump back over Alpine for 7th. They've now got 19 points to 9 for Alpine. 2 for Williams. Sauber remains hapless and scoreless and hopeless for 2024. We go back to Portland, Oregon. John-Eric Verne got the pole, couldn't keep it. Antonio Felix da Costa gets by him. He claims the win, and that's his third straight win this season. I'm trying to remember what the all-time record for most wins in a row in Formula E is. I'm not really sure.
Remember.
Robin Freins ends up finishing second. Mitch Evans third. Pascal Wehrlein slides back to fourth. Then your pole sitter Verne ends up in fifth. Nico Muller, Norman Nato, Max Gunther, Sebastian Buemi, Jake Dennis complete the top 10. So your points run down after a doubleheader weekend in Portland. Nick Cassidy, the leader with 167. Mitch Evans, Pascal Wehrlein tied at 155. Antonio Felix da Costa is now up to fourth with 134 and 131 for Oliver Rowland. Considering we've only got one more race weekend left for Formula E this year, it is a doubleheader weekend. It'll be in London coming up later on this month. That's pretty much the only 5 that are able to claim the title this year. We'll go ahead and run down the entire points lead in the team standings, however. Jaguar got a pretty good hold on it, 322 to 289 over Tag Heuer Porsche, but that's still technically not locked in for Jaguar. Third place is DS Penske with 184. They don't have that locked down because Andretti's got 168, Nissan's got 157. Then your next battle, McLaren leads the way there with 95 to 88 for Envision. Maserati's up to 81. And then your battle to stay out of the cellar is between Mahindra and ERT. Mahindra with 25, ERT has 23. But ERT is scoreless in their last 4 races. That drops them into the cellar, so we'll have to see if they can recover.
There is a tie.
Oh, okay.
For most consecutive wins. And it is at 3.
Ah, there we go.
Sebastian Buemi did it in 2016, 2017.
Mm-hmm.
And Antonio Felix da Costa did it twice. Has done it twice.
Okay.
19 and 20.
And then this year.
And then this year, yeah.
Okay. By the way, the inaugural Manufacturers' Cup standings, Porsche leads that 407 to 388. Jaguar holding 388. Stellantis got 247. Nissan's got 242. Mahindra way back, 63, 23 for ERT, once again holding down the floor. Nice job. Let's go back to Nashville Cup Series, which got interrupted by rain, shocking, and more. We'll get back to that. But when the weather got out of the way and the things rolled to the end, it became, became kind of a mess of a different sort. A Cup Series record. 5 overtime restarts needed to settle things. This meant a fuel mileage factor. Little surprised that it was a veteran, Joey Logano, able to keep enough Sunoco race fuel in the cell to be able to claim the win. Afterward, he said his crew chief asked him if he had enough for a burnout. He said he felt really not a drop to spare when it came to fuel. But when all was said and done, it was that number 22 Mustang Dark Horse spinning around Nashville 110 times from his final fill-up. That's right on the edge. That's got to be.
That's past the edge.
Oof.
That is way past the edge.
You want to talk about packing this thing, and maybe has a nice little extra wide line. Days of Thunder. Just saying.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Throwing it out there. It passed
Yeah.
post-race inspection, so we'll deal with it either way. Logano celebrated like it was his first win of his career, noting this, quote, "I know into turn 3 my fuel light came on. It stumbled across the line. That was definitely all of it. You kind of got to go for it. Boy, it was close. But we've got to give a lot of credit to Roush Yates, not only building horsepower, but building fuel mileage, and that's what won today." Zane Smith finishes second, by far his best finish in his rookie year. Then you got Tyler Reddick third. Ryan Preece with another season best finish there in the fourth place. Chris Buescher, Ryan Blaney, Bubba Wallace, Kyle Larson, Daniel Hemrick, Noah Gragson complete the top 10. 11 of 16 playoff spots are now spoken for. In seed order, it is Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin. It's funny how those two are always together. Christopher Bell, they're all in with 3 wins each. Single-time winners are now Chase Elliott, then Tyler Reddick, Ryan Blaney, Brad Keselowski, Joey Logano, Daniel Suarez, and Austin Cindric. Producer John's favorite driver, Martin Truex Jr., continues to lead those who are in on points, but seats are beginning to get a little bit thin if you're only in on points. Ty Gibbs, Ross Chastain, Chris Buescher, and Alex Bowman in. Bowman with a 51-point lead over Bubba Wallace for 16th. It is nice, but with what we've got coming up between now and the beginning of the playoffs, I wouldn't call it comfortable.
No, not at all.
Then that takes us to Norwalk, Ohio, the finals of the NHRA's Summit Racing Equipment NHRA Nationals. Top fuel came down to a battle between Antron Brown and Doug Kalita. Brown off the light first, crosses the finish line first. 3.736 ET, 330.55 miles per hour. That marks Brown's second win of 2024, his 60th in top fuel. And I say that because he's got 76 wins at top-level NHRA competition in his career. 16 funny car wins go along with those 60 top fuel wins. Man knows how to drive. Mm-hmm. Ron Capps makes it to the finals of funny car. He faces off against Bob Tasca III, almost dead even off the light. Things turned, however, when Capps started to smoke the tires. Tasca claims the win, a 3.908 ET, 330.47 miles per hour. That's his second win of the year, 17th of his career so far. Pro Stock Car comes down to a battle between Aaron Stanfield for a second event in a row as he takes on, this time, Dallas Glenn. Stanfield, with the jump off the light, never trails. Glenn loses the car. Stanfield's run at 208.91 miles per hour. It's a 6.539 ET. Marks his second win in a row and his 10th win of his career to date in the series. Mm-hmm. And in Pro Stock Motorcycle, it was Gage Herrera. And I know, I can tell you're all shocked by that. Yeah. Took on Matt Smith. Herrera, predictably quicker off the light, powers to get another win. 6.704 ET, 200.77 miles per hour. This extends his NHRA record for consecutive wins. It stands now at 11, and he is undefeated in 2024. So we'll get to the points, even though in Proto Stock Motorcycle it's pointless. Doug Kalita holds the top fuel points lead, 134 up on Justin Ashley. Sean Langdon, 136 back. Antron Brown closes in a bit with the win, but he's still 194 behind. Steve Torrance is now in fifth, 206 out of the lead. About 3 years ago, we would have thought Steve Torrance, 206 out of a points lead, would have been unheard of.
I agree.
Funny car led by Austin Prock. He's up 178 on Bob Tasca the third. 181 out is Matt Hagan. John Force is sidelined. Again, we have an update coming up in a little bit. He slips to fourth in points, trailing by 221. J.R. Todd, 228 back. Dallas Glenn leads the way in Pro Stock Car. Closest battle right now, 89 points up on Greg Anderson. 120 over Erica Enders. Aaron Stanfield trails by 173, and 256 out is Jed Coughlin Jr., And then Gage Herrera's lead with yet another win expands up over Matt Smith. Remember, this is first to second, 266. Third place, 296 back, Richard Gadsden. Fourth place, John Hall, 332 out. And sitting in fifth, Angie Smith, 388 behind the leader. Ouch. Mm-hmm. All over but the crying, boys and girls.
Yes, it is.
So this weekend, what racing do we have? Well, NASCAR heads to Chicago. Xfinity Series set to run the Loop 110. This is a 50-lap race on the 12-turn, 2.2-mile-long course set on the streets of Chicago over by the lake. NBC and MRN Radio going to have the race 3:30 p.m. Eastern, 2:30 p.m. Central Time this afternoon as we air live. It's looking like a better weather than last year. But then again, just about anything would be.
Considerably.
Yes.
Considerably.
cloudy with a chance of bullets. But
Hey.
Sunday morning begins with Formula One at home in Britain. I call it at home. Number one, this is the first ever location of a Formula One race, as they call it today. And let's face it, 7 of the 10 teams are based in and around Silverstone, so I'll call it their home. It's the Qatar Airways British Grand Prix, 18 turns, 3.4 miles long. Race time on ESPN, 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Central Time. Indycar takes center stage next, the Honda Indy 200 at Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course, 13 turns, 2.258 miles long. That road course, you'll be able to see it all on NBC and IRN radio. All the coverage starts 1:30 p.m. Eastern, 12:30 p.m. Central Time. And then the anchor leg on the weekend will be the Cup Series running the Grant Park 165. Same exact course as Xfinity will be on later today. This time, though, Cup Series turning 75 laps. This is a drop down from last year when they were slated to run 100. But, of course, again, the monsoon that came in dropped it back to 75. So I guess this year they said, well, 75 will do.
Yep.
NBC has the coverage along with MRN Radio, 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 3:30 p.m. Central Time. The Craftsman Truck Series, Formula E, the NHRA, they are all off this weekend. I don't know whether there's a chance of bullets. I know there was last night at some point in time. It's Chicago. As to whether you'll hear anything during the course of the race today, I don't know. I won't guarantee it one way or another. When we come back, we get into the news, and we'll start with Formula One. Silly season is a hot topic. I mentioned it. Formula One, IndyCar, and NASCAR all affected. But we start with Formula One because, well, signing ain't all.
We will be right back with more on the Championship Racing Network. with 2 tires only, and back out to the track for more action on the Championship Racing Network.
So 3 major signings here as silly season is really in full force. And we start off with Formula One. And it's not necessarily that we think that this signing is bigger than the signing that would happen in NASCAR or the signing that happened in IndyCar. It's the other stuff that happened throughout the course of the week that kind of presses everything up towards the top here. But with all the news that has been surrounding Gene Haas, most of it relates to drivers going away. Mm-hmm. This time around, Gene Haas got proactive, and he has set at least one of his teams up for next year halfway. I'll explain that in a second. He knew, we all knew, because we reported it here on this show a few weeks ago, that he was going to be losing Nico Hülkenberg at the end of the year in Formula One. Hülkenberg going to Sauber, soon to be Audi, right? This time, Haas signing, not losing. He's inked Formula 2 hot shoe Oliver Behrman, who's a Ferrari development driver. This is a multi-year deal. Mm-hmm. And I think that is maybe even the bigger part of this.
I would say so, yes.
Instead of going with just a year or maybe a series of 1-year deals where he can back out of it, this is a guy who Gene Haas has said, okay, you're part of the future. You're part of my long-term plan for this Formula One team.
I mean, somebody that came straight in and finished top 10 his first race in F1, granted it was in a Ferrari house car.
Sure.
That's extremely respectable.
It is. More than.
I've read several things where he, out of everybody that they talked with to fill that seat, he carried himself the best.
Yeah.
And somebody his age carrying himself better than some veterans.
Says a lot.
I would agree with that one.
Known as Ollie by some or many, he impressed, like Matt said earlier this year when he took over the seat of Carlos Sainz when Sainz was sidelined with appendicitis. He raced well, finished in the points, 7th specifically. He's currently running for Prima Racing in Formula 2, grabbed his first win of 2024 and 4th in Formula 2 action just last weekend in Austria. So what a way to celebrate, right?
Yep.
He's listed right now as a reserve driver for both Ferrari and Haas F1 this year. He's slated to get at least 6 FP1 practice session runs before the end of the year. That included in Britain, where he actually did quite well. He and Nico Hülkenberg teaming up, and they were both in the 10 to 15 range, if I remember right.
That's what I'm about to investigate right here.
And here we go. With the signing, we may start to get more. And I say start to get more because we're still in that situation where we're trying to figure out what's going to happen with Carlos Sainz, who will be splitting with Ferrari at the end of the year. Mercedes, according to a report I just read this morning, might be somewhat cooling on the idea of bringing up their own Formula 2 driver. So Mercedes may be reopening the door to Carlos Sainz. And other than Red Bull, that's probably the one that Carlos Sainz is waiting on.
I would say so. I mean, it makes the most sense. I mean, because...
Yeah. I mean, after that, his primary choices, at least at this point in time, are Williams, a back marker, Haas F1, a back marker, even though they're trying to climb out of the cellar.
Yeah.
And the cellar dwellers themselves, you know. Plus, we're talking Alpine, which is having massive problems this year. And Sauber probably is not going to go for him, with all due respect. No. So I won't go necessarily with the cellar dweller.
He was 14th in FP1.
Okay, and if I remember right, I think I saw Nico Hülkenberg was 11th.
Correct.
Okay, there you go. Still, not bad.
No.
Not bad for a kid who really is still getting his feet wet in this particular area. The car that he got to test, by the way, is kind of a new-looking racer as well. The VF24 Haas F1 car debuted at Silverstone with a rash of body upgrades, most notably being a difference in the side pods and air intakes. I found out about this morning as well. Sorry we don't have a picture, but it'll be all right. The details are kind of hard to tell. What I'm going to tell you is really that what's more important here is that Haas is actually moving away from Ferrari's way of doing the side pod / air intake area, and they're moving more towards what McLaren's looks like.
Yep.
And
yep.
it's interesting to note because for Haas F1 is the Ferrari customer that we've been talking about for a very long time. And generally, if Ferrari does it, Haas F1 will do it. For them to go away from the team that is currently second place in points and take the system from the team that's third place in points is an interesting move. Because Ferrari is actually beating McLaren in the Constructors' Cup with this particular look that Haas F1 is going away from.
Yes.
We'll see whether it works. I mean, here's the thing. We can say, okay, yeah, they finally got double points last weekend in Austria. Why would you mess with something that's working? But we're not 100% certain that everything was working. I mean, the last round of upgrades that they installed on the car was back for the Chinese Grand Prix, and it does seem to have done some of what Haas F1 has been looking for, which is something they were suffering from last year. They had so much downforce last year, it was actually causing the tires to degrade abnormally early. So they couldn't keep tires on the car. They seem to have gotten to the point where they fixed that, and they're not using up tires like they were last year.
Yep.
Again, they scored double pointing last weekend, but apparently they're hoping that the McLaren-style side pod and air intake is going to help them to be more regularly scoring what they're hoping will be double points.
I mean, look what it's done for McLaren.
I know.
McLaren
But again,
is-
Ferrari's beating them in the points overall right now anyway. I mean,
Right now, yeah. But
maybe it's one of those situations where they're looking at trends
it's McLaren.
because McLaren does seem to be,
McLaren's,
Lando Norris notwithstanding, McLaren does seem to be a little more consistent than Ferrari here
that's
over the last
exactly
few
what I was
weeks.
about to say. McLaren's consistency.
Which brings me to another situation when it comes to this. Okay. Haas F1 being a little bit proactive. They're not waiting until late in the year to try and get their 2025 seat situation settled. They've gone out. They have settled in on Ollie Behrman. Now they'll concentrate at some point in time, I guess, maybe even during the August break, on whether or not Kevin Magnussen's going to be around. And if he's not, who are you going to go to?
Right.
But number two, for them to make this turn this fast, again, being that Ferrari customer team that they are, getting their engines on as many parts as are allowed by FIA and Formula One rules, for them to slide away from the way that Ferrari has been making their cars look and the side pods and the air intakes and all that, for them to realize that McLaren seems to be much more steady with both of their cars than what Ferrari has been, for them to make that switch from the Chinese Grand Prix to now.
Back to what I said earlier with the consistency part.
Very proactive.
Both the McLaren's cars are consistently towards the front, and you have one Ferrari car or the other one on each end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
So that consistency factor, I'm sure, has played into that, because if they can get the consistency out of a side pods that look like that, why couldn't another?
I'm kind of impressed that Haas F1 is being much more proactive in this situation than they have been reactive. Usually they're the last team to go and adopt something like this. In this case, they're moving to it quick.
Komatsu versus Steiner.
Yeah, you're probably very, very right about that.
That's the best way to sum that up.
When it came to the collision that we talked about during the race recap between Lando Norris and Max Verstappen, which opened the door that let George Russell jump up and get the win, race stewards did an investigation. And what they've determined in this is that Verstappen forced the issue and said that he, by forcing the issue, caused a collision that could have been avoided. So they slapped him with a 10-second penalty. Now, in the end, while he had to go into the pits, get new tires, he ended up dropping from battling for first to fifth. The time penalty really didn't matter. He was more than 10 seconds ahead of sixth place Nico Hülkenberg by the time the checkered flag was shown. So, no, it didn't matter. But it didn't stop Red Bull boss Christian Horner from chiming in after the race, calling the penalty, quote, harsh, unquote. Now, Norris was hit with a 5-second penalty for exceeding track limits in the aftermath of the collision. There's not really much more he could have done about that, mainly because of the fact that when you have a cut tire and you're that close to the edge anyway, you're going to have a hard time not going over the track limits.
Well, where I said this on Tuesday, where that penalty come in from exceeding track limits is because he decided to make a move to go to the outside to pass on the outside, and it didn't work. It didn't work. it was almost like he timed the jump too late. And when Max was going in on his apex end to the right-hander, there he was.
Yeah.
He was there.
No way to avoid it.
Yeah. So, I don't know.
Then the kind of comedic side of this particular incident, neither Verstappen nor Norris were happy about this situation. Then there's George Russell, who was thrilled. But obviously, so was Mercedes boss Toto Wolff, who found himself having to apologize to George Russell after the race for comments that he made while George Russell was inheriting the lead. When the incident happened, Toto Wolff immediately had eyebrows popped up, his ears perked up, everything suddenly jumped to attention, right? He gets on the radio and exclaims, "George, you can win this! You can win this, George!"
George, you can win this. George, you can win this. I can hear him now saying that.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
Russell responded, and of course I've edited it because we can't quote him exactly. Russell responds with, quote, "Just let me bleep and drive." Apparently Russell was heading into the corner that we were showing there, very sharp right-hander. And you kind of got to concentrate on your braking situation unless you find yourself, exceeding track limits and getting a 5-second penalty. Wolff admitted that he realized what he had done. He remained quiet for the remainder of the race and then went after the checkered flag was shown and Russell had gotten across the finish line and was officially on his cool-down lap. He finally got on the radio and apologized. He said, quote, "My bad speaking through your braking. It just got me." He started laughing on the radio. His driver replied, quote, "You got very excited there, Toto. Very excited." Wolff would later tell media he called the outburst the, quote, "single dumbest thing that he has done on the radio while at Mercedes."
I don't know if I'd say that, but, you know. Oh, well. Yeah.
Yeah, speaking of radio outbursts, Yuki Tsunoda got fined for his language that he used over the team radio during the qualifying session last Saturday. He apparently got very unhappy about being stuck behind Zhou Guanyu on pit lane while trying to go out, and he blurted this out: "You guys are bleeping retarded." Now, as we know now, the word retarded has also become a slur against the mentally handicapped. Backed up with the expletive, it prompted race stewards to bring Tsunoda into their offices. They had a chat with him. They fined him 40,000 euros, or about 43,000 American dollars, for the comments, half of which was suspended for the remainder of the year, presuming, of course, that Yuki Tsunoda can control his mouth. Tsunoda released a statement afterwards, said, quote, "I wanted to say big apologies. That's what I said over the radio. Obviously, I didn't use it intentionally, was completely misunderstanding from myself that exact meaning of it. I now have better understanding for what the word means, and I'm very apologetic for having said what I said. This type of language has no place, is not tolerated, and for that, I am sorry." As we have said many times, cameras, microphones, just presume they're on all the time.
We will be right back with more on the Championship Racing Network. fuel only. Go, go, go. We're back to the Championship Racing Network.
Welcome back in. Still talking Formula One action here. When things get rolling in Great Britain, it's going to be because of, obviously, we've got the British Grand Prix, but Pierre Gasly, it's not going to be a good start to him. We'll have to see whether or not he can recover from this. And based upon what we have seen from Alpine so far, I'm not going to guarantee it. Pierre Gasly dealing with the grid penalty after Alpine decided to replace his power unit for this weekend in Britain. This is his 5th one of the year, according to the rules. That surpasses his allotment for the season. So wherever he ended up qualifying, which that'll begin at what, 20 minutes or so?
15 minutes.
15 minutes. He will have to slide back 10 positions to start the race. But the thing about it is that was all set in stone anyway. How? Well, after the race in Austria, Alpine said that Gasly's racer required a new battery and set of engine controls, and those two changes actually cost him 20 spots on the grid anyway. And so since he was guaranteed, even if he happened to get pole, to start shotgun on the field, the team went ahead and gave him an entirely new power unit, so all these penalties do not stack from one race to the next. So this is a one-and-done situation. So have fun qualifying, Pierre. It won't matter.
Well, if you had engines that cost $10 million a piece, I could see why there's engine limitations, but it's just always been a personal opinion of mine. I think it's pretty stupid because you have to change an engine because you have a part failure of some kind that causes damage, and you have to change said engine. Why should you be penalized if a part fails?
I guess it's a cost-cutting move, I suppose. And I guess I can understand in the process because IndyCar does this too, and it's also limited to 4. But I'm sitting here thinking about it. I'm wondering if, you're trying to get through, in this case, Formula One's trying to get through 24 races. And you and I, we know how high revving these things are. We know what kind of abuse these things take. I'm kind of wondering whether 4 is enough. I can follow 4 in IndyCar because you're 17. You're trying to make a car, you make an engine run 4 races.
Four races, yes. And as short as these Grand Prix are, in F1, 24 races, you get 6 engines.
I would think 6 would probably be the better number.
One engine every 4 races, free to change. For maintenance, freshening, whatever. I would love to see. Sorry, honey, but this is a wish here. I would love to go over to Milton Keynes at Red Bull and go watch a refreshening process on an engine. Yeah. I would love to go to Breckley and go watch a refreshening session for an engine on a Mercedes. Mm-hmm. I would love to go to Italy and watch the same thing on Ferrari.
Yeah.
And just see. Because Cup has got, even though it's not a full engine set and there's no penalty trying to change an engine, you have to use the same short block for X amount of races.
Mm-hmm. But everything else, heck, they're practically doing rebuilds for all intents and purposes.
There's no way you can make heads go that long.
No. Other news of the week, Aston Martin continues to look to their future with Martin Whitmarsh set to leave the organization later on this year. A new CEO has been named. It is former Mercedes engine guru Andy Cowell. He's been tapped to come in and take on the role. That'll be effective October the 1st, by the way. Cowell headed Mercedes engine department from 2013 to 2020. You know that nice little area where they won 7 straight F1 driver and constructor cup titles?
That one, yeah.
Yep. He was also there in 2021 as he was transitioning from being the head of their engine department to being a consultant for the organization. They got the 2021 Constructors' Cup title as well. Cowell said in a statement, quote, "I'm thrilled to join Lawrence Stroll, Aston Martin's chairman. His exciting project, and look forward to working with the talented group of people that have been assembled. F1 has always been my competitive passion, and I'm joining Aston Martin in an exciting time with the imminent completion of the AMR Technology Campus, our transition in 2026 to becoming a full works team with our strategic partners Honda, which will be their new engine guys, and Aramco, which will be a new primary sponsor for them." Then there's Renault. We noted some weeks ago here on the show that Renault is considering getting out of being an F1 engine provider. So what, if they do, would their factory team Alpine do? Well, Mercedes has stepped up, said that they are, quote, open-minded, unquote, when it comes to potentially supplying them engines. They might actually be able to fit this in. Right now, Mercedes supplies engines, obviously, to their own works team. They also supply engines to Williams, Aston Martin, and McLaren. But as I just told you, one of those, Aston Martin, switching to Honda power in 2026. The question becomes, though, does that really ease the situation? Maybe a little. At this time, there have only been introductory talks between the Alpine team and Mercedes. No details have been exchanged, nor even a specific offer in writing made. And Renault technically has yet to decide if they're even going to get out of the F1 engine business. To me, if you're already in it and you've got your own team, why wouldn't you just, even if you're only supplying engines to your own team, why wouldn't you just keep doing it?
Stay there.
I don't understand.
It makes no sense.
Are they hurting that much for money?
I don't see how they couldn't be.
I don't know. Whatever. And we've been wondering what that Apple Plus movie that is going to star Brad Pitt and have Formula One at the centerpiece is going to be called, and now we know it. Truth be told, it's a little underwhelming. Title of the Brad Pitt movie is going to be F1. Okay. Is that it? It's the best you could come up with?
Well, I guess it's better than FU. I mean, you know.
Woo!
Interesting point. The movie is still in its filming stage. It'll be still part of filming all the way leading up. They're going to be a major part of things, probably more today than tomorrow, because they really aren't actually involved that much in race day. But when it comes to qualifying and practice sessions, that's usually when you're going to see the cars for the movie on the track. That'll likely continue through the remainder of the year. Then they get into post-production and editing before a release date in June of next year. But supposedly, there's going to be a teaser trailer about this movie set to come out tomorrow at about 9:30 a.m. Eastern, 8:30 a.m. Central Time tomorrow as well. So I guess we'll get to see how good this might look, at least on the surface. We'll try and share it with you as soon as we are able to get a hold of it. So keep an eye on CRN Live on YouTube. To the Cup Series. So, yeah. The whole Gene Haas thing, let's face it. It is a soap opera. And we noted that Gene Haas at least is being proactive when it comes to his team in Formula One, locking down one seat. Now we'll see what happens with the other one, right? Meantime, the dismantling of Stewart Haas Racing has all but begun. We talked about a couple of weeks ago how Chase Briscoe has signed for next year. He will be moving, and he'll be changing makes, too. He's moving not only from Stewart Haas Racing and Ford, but to Joe Gibbs Racing and Toyota. Now, after Briscoe has signed, so is one of his soon-to-be ex-teammates.
I've got something on Briscoe in a minute. Something that was said about Briscoe this week that I want to jump in about that is absolutely stupid.
Okay, we'll do that. But first, this time, Rookie of the Year candidate Josh Berry. Josh Berry has signed a multi-year deal, and he will take over the driver's seat of the Wood Brothers number 21. At this time, it isn't known if his current crew chief, Rodney Childers, is going to follow him. It was stated yesterday afternoon, according to Barry, that Childers and the Wood Brothers are slated to talk sometime in the next week or two. We'll see. I mean, these two have been making noise about being a team not only this year, but next year, wherever that might be. The signing also made no mention of who would be the crew chief for Barry. So, yeah, there is still the possibility. This is a multi-year deal. And I'm sorry, I'm going to look at Harrison Burton and I'm going to say Josh Berry's an upgrade. How much of an upgrade becomes the question.
Yes, I agree on that part. It is an upgrade. But I'm going to revert back to one of my key statements and phrases I say within our platforms of shows. And I can say that now.
Okay.
The equipment is going to tell you really, really quick if it's the car, if it's the driver, or if it's both. It's going to tell you in a hurry And with how their partnership is with Team Penske,
Yeah.
they're the de facto fourth Penske car.
Well, they're supposed to be.
Supposed to be. Keyword de facto.
I mean, the funny thing is that when we keep looking around at wins there, we keep seeing those 3 Penske cars over there with Cindric, Logano, and Ryan Blaney, who is the defending Cup Series champion.
Yeah.
We keep seeing them rack up wins on the win column, but we don't see a whole lot of Wood Brothers, and we haven't for, 4 or 5 years?
You haven't seen Wood Brothers be in existence since Ryan Blaney left.
Yeah.
Essentially.
And he was the guy that got them their 99th win.
Yeah, at Pocono.
So they've been sitting there waiting on 100
right.
now through, what, 2 drivers at least?
Yes.
Matt DiBenedetto,
yes.
and of course we got Harrison Burton. Is there another one in there that I'm missing?
No. DiBenedetto
Okay.
and Burton.
All right.
All right. And you talking about the Penske car. Austin Cindric lucked in the gateway. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
True. But, I
lucked
mean,
in
we
the
haven't
gateway.
even seen a situation where Wood Brothers seems like they could luck into one.
You save face from a super speedway race? Correct. I agree with that. Because you can flip a quarter on anybody and you've got a legitimate shot. You've got. I know Penske wants to have a say so. Let's word it that way, into who the crew chief is going to be on the 21 car, because it being a Penske affiliated car. But if you're smart, you think, hey, Jeremy Bolins, let's move you into a in-house role, like within the competition side.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have you work with Travis Geisler somehow, and you go get Rodney Childers, because you see what Barry and Childers have done. They're going this way.
They're trending the right way.
They're not going that way.
They
They're
are
going the
trending
right
the right way,
direction.
yeah.
Exactly.
They are.
If you're smart, and I'm John Wood, I am putting red hot pressure on Penske to, like, I want him on this car.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the influence that Eddie and Lynn Wood has, they could jump in behind John and say, yeah. Let's get him, because we see what it's doing. And it would be so popular, in my opinion. It would be extremely popular if Barry and Childers secured win 100 for the Wood Brothers.
Oh, my gosh.
It would be extremely
Unreal.
popular.
Unreal. How
If you're
popular
smart,
that will be.
go get him.
That win is going to be as popular as, even though Richard Petty doesn't really have a big hand in the 43 car anymore, let's face it, anytime the 43 car sniffs victory lane, that is a very popular situation.
The 43 car's last win, and of all places, Darlington. How popular was that win?
Yeah.
Extremely.
Then you put the 21 in victory lane, and it's win number 100. Woof. Yeah.
I said this
Huge.
I said this a couple of weeks ago. Though the sport needs to do this, the sport needs to do that. No, this is what this sport needs. This sport needs these 3 cars, these 3 numbered cars, to be back at the front of the field on a consistent basis. 3, 21, 43.
21 I like. 43 has, I think they've got the right driver. I'm just not sure they've got the right support staff yet.
They're in a situation where they've got that one puzzle piece and it just won't quite click right down into the puzzle.
Yeah. In the meantime, it looks like the 3 car hasn't even taken the puzzle out of the box.
Yeah.
All right. Since we got just a moment here, we'll go ahead and talk right now, and let's deal with what you were talking about when it comes to Chase Briscoe.
Edsel Ford
Yes.
had a tweet he put out about seeing Chase Briscoe at the press conference when he was introduced to JGR with a Toyota logo on.
That's what he's going to be wearing next year.
Edsel, you had a shot to keep him.
Mm-hmm.
You had your chance.
You could have called up Gene Haas and you could have pressured him as soon as, because we found out that Gene Haas was keeping a charter pretty quick. And I bet you Edsel Ford found out about it long before it was made public.
Probably so. And the way I see it, with how the front office is structured, that's Cole Custer's seat to lose. I'm sorry, but I'm saying it. It's Cole Custer's seat to lose unless he chooses to stay in Xfinity.
So here's the other thing that Edsel Ford could have done. We just talked about the 21 car. Obviously, they were willing to make a change. He could have called up the Wood brothers and Roger Penske and tried to pressure them. But correct me if I'm wrong, right after Stewart Haas Racing said we're going to be selling our charters, turns out they're selling 3 of the 4, didn't Front Row Motorsports go out and buy one like that?
That would be correct.
And we know this. Michael McDowell is already gone. He's going to Spire next year. So that means that one of the 2 existing seats that they've got is going to be empty. And then you got to fill the seat of the 3rd charter. So Front Row's got 2 empty seats. Could you not have made a call over to Front Row and said, hey, listen, can we try and keep Chase Briscoe in the Ford camp?
Yeah, could have. But back to something Briscoe said. JGR was the only team that did not ask the question, how much money can you bring?
And I found it interesting to note
it shouldn't matter
that Josh Berry said effectively the same thing when the Wood brothers came calling, that they didn't ask what he was going to bring with him. They wanted him for him.
That's the way it should be.
Yeah.
That's the way it should be. But it's baffling to me because you've apparently got Front Row, and this is out there, whether it's got truth or not, and I used to say it again, apparently you've got Front Row looking at Sam Mayer, and you got Front Row looking at Noah Gragson.
Which Noah Gragson I can kind of understand.
Noah Gragson has some sponsorship he can bring with him. But last I checked, Bob Jenkins, what is he the largest holder of in the Southeast? That would be Taco Bell's and Long John Silver's. I think Bob Jenkins has got plenty of money to put a 3rd car on the track.
Yeah. Otherwise, he wouldn't have gone out and got that 3rd charter.
Kevin, and this is where I'm going to slap Kevin Harvick on the hand on this one. Shut up talking about this. But you agree with Edsel Ford, but you're back driving Chevrolet branded stuff in late model. Give me a break, Kevin.
Yeah. Agreed. All right. So off the track activity, we're not totally done with it, but we want to switch from off the track activity to on the track activity. Not just 1, but 2 run-ins last weekend on the track. It does make us wonder whether or not there's some people that are really, really hot under the collar. We'll tell about those 2 different incidents and the 4 drivers involved when we come back. Hour 2's next.
Don't touch that dial. The Championship Racing Network will be right back. 4 tires and 2 cans of fuel, and we're back to more racing action on the Championship Racing Network.
So a couple of run-ins on the track last weekend. Probably the more notable one is going to be the one that happened between Denny Hamlin and Kyle Larson. And this marks 3 weeks in a row that these two have battled each other for points. This time, coming to the end of stage 2, was on the final lap of that stage. Larson had gotten inside of Hamlin, then washed Hamlin up the track. And this is something I'll admit right up here on at the front. I've seen Hamlin do this many times himself to gain a spot to another driver, Kyle Larson or whoever. Mm-hmm. Larson turns around, he does it, he's able to beat Hamlin to the finish line for the extra position. He gets the point. Under caution, before pit road becomes open here at the end of stage 2, Hamlin expresses his frustration/anger by hitting the rear of Larson's car several times. This prompted his spotter and his crew chief to get on the radio and dress Hamlin down, telling him to concentrate on the bigger picture and quit worrying about one spot at the end of stage 2. I haven't heard yet whether Hamlin and Larson have talked since the end of the race.
Oh, I'm sure they have.
I mean, these two have been, over the course of time, pretty good friends to the point where we have heard Larson has hitched a ride with Hamlin on his private jet to a race on numerous occasions.
They're probably laughing about it behind the scenes going, man, these fools think we have a rivalry, but we really don't. We're just on the show.
Exactly.
You know.
To me, the biggest news to this is not him getting frustrated with Larson and tapping the back bumper. It is the fact that his crew chief and his spotter got on the radio and dressed Hamlin down, saying, hey, back off, concentrate on the bigger picture, and don't screw up your car. And the reason I bring that up is because of the second confrontation that happened during the race, and this one happening between the 21 Wood Brothers car driven by Harrison Burton and the 77 Spire Motorsports car of Carson Hocevar. Now, these two are younger drivers. And because they're younger drivers, they tend to, well, not quite have their emotions under as good a control as a veteran would. Maybe. These two were racing each other when a caution happened. Under caution, Hocevar, not benefiting from an over-the-radio berating like Hamlin got, ended up running into the number 21 on the third try, finally turning him. Well, Nascar, who noted that Hocevar has had issues like this in the Craftsman Truck Series, they came down fairly hard on Hocevar. They docked him 25 points. That's not the big situation there. Because, again, as we talked about it going into the podcast on Tuesday, Hocevar is like 156 points out. 25 points isn't going to hurt. You dock him $50,000, he's a rookie. That's going to sting a little bit. Yeah. NASCAR did all that, citing Section 4.4B of the NASCAR Member Code of Conduct, which is something that they've brought up many, many times before. Here is the extra problem that I've got with this. Because every Monday, Denny Hamlin gets up there and he does his Dirty Mo Media produced Actions Detrimental podcast.
Sure.
Did you hear it this week?
I did.
Did you notice where he was talking about how Hocevar needed to be slapped and slapped down hard?
Mm-hmm.
Hamlin, you looking in the mirror? You started to do the exact same thing that Hocevar finished off.
Correct.
I'm just asking the question, Denny. You're guilty practically of the exact same thing. You got upset at Kyle Larson for passing you, and you started tapping on the back bumper. What was your end goal? How many times are you going to tap on him until you turn him? And then your spotter and your crew chief get on the radio and say, hey, stupid, wake up. Bigger picture, points.
Now you know why I don't root for Hamlin.
That's why a lot of people don't root for Denny Hamlin. So here's the situation, Denny. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. You got lucky that your spotter and your crew chief stopped you and made you look at the bigger picture. Carson Hocevar just let his emotions get the better of him.
He did.
And I'll say this for Carson Hocevar. This is a kid who has an immense amount of fairly raw talent that is starting to come into form. There's a reason why this kid made the jump from the trucks last year to the Cup Series. And he is arguably the standard bearer for Spire Motorsports right now. because he's outperforming the other two Spire Motorsports car. Last
Agreed.
weekend, notwithstanding, I understand Zane Smith got himself a second-place finish. And you've got the veteran over there in Corey LaJoie. But for the most part, if you look at the performance over the course of the season, Carson Hocevar is outperforming the other two cars under the Spire banner.
He is.
What Carson needs to do is mature a little bit. And that will take a little bit of time, but it's also going to take a little bit of coaching.
Agreed.
And hopefully a $50,000 fine won't hurt that particular wake-up situation either.
Probably not.
Then there's Hendrick Motorsports. We don't usually talk about sponsor problems for Hendrick Motorsports, but they have had a problem this time around, and they have, because of it, officially ended their partnership with Hooters Restaurants. They've been a primary sponsor of the 9 car for Chase Elliott now for a number of years. Their official statement said, quote, Hooters has been a valued partner with Hendrick Motorsports since 2017, contributing to our shared successes both on and off the track. In recent months, however, Hooters has not been able to meet its business obligations to our organization. Due to these unfortunate and unexpected circumstances, and despite extensive efforts on both sides to identify a workable solution, it became necessary for Hendrick Motorsports to end the relationship. It has been a privilege having Hooters as part of our team, and we wish them the best. You think it's Hooters Restaurants, it's a sports bar.
Yeah, but they're not doing so well.
They aren't. They've been a primary sponsor for 3 races this year. One of those you see right there. 2 of them already run Atlanta and Texas, the second of which Elliott won. He was slated to have them on the hood at Richmond next month. Now it's uncertain as to who exactly is going to be the sponsor for Elliott during that race. I'm sure they'll figure something out. USA Today, the newspaper, reported on June 26th, so just, not even 2 weeks ago. Hooters is one of those restaurant locations that, like producer John mentioned, having a bit of financial difficulties. They are set to close or have already closed some 44 locations around the country that they have termed underperforming, and that happened real fast.
Well, when you change your food like you've changed it and the food is falling off like it has, that would be warranted of an underperformance.
Yep. It was also noted by some sharp-eyed viewers last weekend that the Hooters logo, which is an associate sponsor when they're not a primary under their deal, they weren't anywhere to be found on the 9 car last weekend at Nashville.
Starting third in the HendrickCars.com number 9 Chevrolet Chase Elliott.
That's
at
pretty
Richmond.
much what I'm figuring is going to happen
Probably
at Richmond. It'll be HendrickCars.com. And one more note out of the Cup Series here, which is congratulations out to Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and his wife Madison. They have welcomed their first child. It is a young boy who has got a lot of alliteration in his name. His name is Stetson Steele Stenhouse. Born officially on the 4th of July, listed at 8 pounds 7 ounces, 21 inches long. Congratulations. Looks healthy. Looks like a good-looking kid.
Big fella.
I think he's going to be. I think they're going to be quite happy and healthy, and we wish them that here at the Championship Racing Network.
He'll be in a sprint car and by age 7.
I was about to say in about 4 years.
Quickly.
Not doubt it.
I don't know whether this is going to be. It might mean that this is just the tip of the iceberg. This could be the first move in a whole lot of moves, or this could be an outlier. I kind of tend to think that this is the first move of many to come. Longtime NASCAR employee Darrell Wolf has announced he's set to retire at the end of this season. Wolf, who is currently the Executive Vice President and Chief Revenue Officer, has been with NASCAR since 1995 when he joined what was then the International Speedway Corporation. Now that's, of course, folded into the bigger picture of NASCAR. Sports Business Journal first reported on Wolf's pending retirement early this week, said he sent a memo to his coworkers stating his intent to step away at the end of the racing season. He'll move into a consultancy role. How or even if he will be replaced is uncertain at this time. His current role is to oversee how NASCAR generates revenue, everything from ticket sales to licensing, sponsorships, and a whole lot more, except for media terms. So in other words, he had very little to nothing to do with the television deals that have been popping up that we have talked about here. Again, I don't know. I kind of tend to think that this is just the beginning of a lot of changes.
I'm sure it probably is.
We'll see where it goes.
Holy crash, that just happened in practice. Wow.
Which one? Xfinity?
That'd be Xfinity.
Okay. Tell us about it.
That would be...
Seeing as we're about to transition to the Xfinity Series anyway.
Looks like a lap car got caught up and tangled up. Alon Day, that's driving the 45 car for Alpha Prime this weekend, got crossed up or something and took Justin Allgaier out.
Ooh.
I mean, the door on the 45 car is completely gone and the track is littered. So we're definitely under red flag right now.
Yeah, and maybe a backup car situation coming.
I don't know.
We'll see.
We shall see.
Speaking of the Xfinity Series, this is going to be an interesting story to watch because I think there's more to this story.
I'm about to, let me get the driver out of the bag here.
AM Racing has been pretty unimpressed with Xfinity Series Rookie of the Year contender Hailie Deegan. How unimpressed? Well, they've decided to pull her out of the 15 car, at least for this weekend's race on the streets of Chicago, and they're putting in Joey Logano. And when they put Joey Logano in the car, that should help them determine whether it is indeed the driver, or at least in some part, the car. Now, this is going to mark Joey Logano's first start in the Xfinity Series since 2019, but the two-time Cup Series champion does have 30 wins in the series in his career. AM Racing President Wade Moore talked about this change, said, quote, "The level of competition in the Xfinity Series is as competitive as it's ever been." He continued, quote, "It is our goal at AM Racing to field a competitive race team through our technical alliance with Stewart Haas Racing," next year Haas factory team, "and provide any of our drivers the best equipment and opportunity to be successful on track each weekend. With that being said, we haven't had the success on track that we were hoping for the first half of this season. When the opportunity to have Joey in the car at Chicago became a possibility, we felt we needed to take advantage of this knowledge and the feedback that a two-time NASCAR Cup Series champion could provide to our team's growth." Now, here's where this gets interesting. Okay. We'll get back to this.
Something go ahead.
Yeah, okay. Deegan is, as I noted, in her rookie year in the Xfinity Series. She's a Ford development driver. She signed a multi-year deal with AM Racing to make the move after having run in the Craftsman Truck Series the past 3 years. Now, her time in the Truck Series shows she's popular. She was voted the fans' most popular driver the past each of those years. But she wasn't able to put a truck in victory lane. I said at the beginning of the year that doing as much of a side-by-side comparison as you could possibly do, that I felt that Tony Breidinger would outperform Hailie Deegan. And right now, I'm not finding where that's wrong. But I'll say this as well. AM Racing has not said anything about what they're going to do after Chicago. We go to Pocono in the Xfinity Series after this. AM Racing hasn't even said whether Hailie Deegan's going to be back in the car or whether it's going to be another driver. I have already seen somebody post on the internet. You know, we can all believe everything we read on the internet, right? I have already seen somebody say that Harrison Burton will replace Hailie Deegan at AM Racing for 2025.
No.
Now, we do know this.
No.
Yes,
no.
he's out of the ride at the 21 car, so he would be available. But do I honestly believe it? No. I can't find anybody who is reputable amongst all the people that we talk to, listen to, and read on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis here at CRN who has come anywhere close to asserting that same thing. So where you got your BS amount of information, I don't know. But stop it. Again, I don't know what's going to happen with Hailie. Hailie Deegan might end up back in the car next weekend at Pocono. I don't know whether she will or not. I think a lot of it will have to do with what Joey Logano does behind the wheel of that car. But I'm not certain that this is the best test of that. This is a one-off in Chicago on the streets. Are you really going to find out whether it's the car or the driver at Chicago?
No, you're not. I'm going to say this, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it either. Ford dropped the ball on this one. Ford did.
I won't argue that.
And with the cue right there, I'm going to hold and reserve the rest of this thought until after we get done with the break, because it's going to take me a minute.
Yeah, it sure will.
While we sit and watch practice at the Mistake by the Lake,
which used to be the old Memorial Coliseum / stadium in Cleveland, Ohio, where the Indians used to play. I could see it affecting the Chicago Street Course, sure.
Stay right here for more on the Championship Racing Network. Two tires only, and back out to the track for more action on the Championship Racing Network.
All right, I said I was going to touch back on this Haley Deegan situation when we come back from the break, so here we are.
Yeah, we are back.
Ford dropped the ball on this one. Here's why. Ford was pushing her because female driver. There's nothing wrong with that. Let me be clear on that. You're pushing a female driver that has the looks and appeal.
And she does.
And she does. But you're pushing a female driver that has looks and appeal that really hadn't performed at a level that warranted a promotion to Xfinity outside of having some consistent runs in ARCA.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, again, most popular driver 3 years running in the truck series does not warrant you moving up to the Xfinity series.
True. But you're taking let me word this one easily here. You took out a driver that was driving your car, that was finishing top 10, top 15 on a consistent basis for somebody that was unproven. And it's basically you're taking your program that is somebody that was overachieving in a mid-pack car. Let's word it that way.
Sure.
To somebody that has underperformed in top-level equipment in the series below. How would you expect her to be successful and running consistent in a mid-pack car. Oh, our alliance with Stewart Haas. Do you seriously think for 1 second that Stewart Haas is going to give a better car than Riley Herbst or Cole Custer?
No.
Absolutely not.
No.
Absolutely not.
I mean, what
Okay.
we saw out of that last year was when Stewart Haas prepped a car, it was for a Stewart Haas racing driver come down to run the Xfinity Series.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah, right. And then the only other one outside of those three is Ryan Sieg, but Ryan Sieg has been around for a long time, and he knows how to get the most out of
That he does.
mid-level tier equipment. Let's
Yeah.
word it that way.
He does.
He knows how to get the most out of it. So this is on the level of Nick DeVries a couple years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, but this is the truth. You're on the level of Nick DeVries here. You're throwing a rookie into a situation that doesn't have enough time in these cars, that has not seen several of these racetracks, but yet you're expecting this, expecting that. Ford, you should have left her in trucks until you've seen a move was warranted.
Yeah.
So guess what?
I question the support system.
Exactly. So guess what? Now, your pipeline driver, Frankie Muniz, come on down.
Maybe.
But
Maybe.
Mark said last week in our YouTube comment thread, Frankie's a diamond in the rough. He hasn't been in the right situation yet, but Haley has.
Yeah, but again, I question the support system.
Exactly. That's what it is.
You know,
I can
and here's the thing. It won't matter for me whether it's Haley Deegan or Frankie Muniz behind the wheel. If you don't have the proper support system in place, it ain't going to work.
Or if support system being a staff support and equipment support.
Mm-hmm.
But I could guarantee you right now, and timestamp it, 9:27 a.m. You put Frankie Muniz in a Thor Sport truck last year, or the last 2 years,
He's got to win.
if not multiple.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So while Deegan seems to be on a hot seat, another driver who came up along with her and does race for Stewart Haas Racing proper does appear to have plenty of options. Talking about Riley Herbst. Riley could still remain with the Haas factory team in 2025. We noted last week while in Nashville, though, he does have plenty of options. His words, not ours, when it comes to racing next year in NASCAR. Herbst is now 25 years old. He said this, quote, "I think there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes, but it's not really just about Riley Herbst. It's Monster Energy as well. The biggest thing is trying to see what's right for me and what's right for Monster Energy." So that means he's got money coming with him, which that will open up the eyeballs of a few teams. Quote, Herbst continued, "I have really good people around me with Josh Jones and Kevin Harvick trying to guide me into the right position, and I'm going to lean on their experience. I did it last year. I'm going to again this year. There's a lot of options on the table, so we're looking forward to everything and hearing everybody out," and added that he has been contacted by teams in all three top NASCAR series. That's something interesting to note, that he is willing to. And remember, this is something that we looked at and we kind of flipped out about a few years ago when John Hunter Nemechek came in and he got that ride and he was the rookie of the year and everything. But after 1 year, he said, "Thanks, but I'm going to drop all the way from the Cup Series all the way back down to the Craftsman Truck Series." And won. And then moved up to the Xfinity Series and won. And now he's back in the Cup Series in arguably, and I say arguably, a better ride, because that really could be debated. Back then, probably not so much. Now, yeah, it could be debated, because he came up through Front Row Motorsports. Front Row Motorsports at that point in time was still trying to pick themselves up off of the mat and stop being stomped on all the time. They've done that now.
Yeah,
Could Riley Herbst, with the right situation, drop back down to the Truck Series? Yeah, he could, but I'm not certain I would if I were him. At the very least, I would stay right where I am with the Haas factory team.
He's holding his own in Xfinity, and you know, at the level he's held himself right now, from end of last year to right now, I could guarantee you Gene Haas has already told him a seat is yours if you want to stay.
Yeah.
I can guarantee that.
And Gene Haas certainly would certainly benefit from having the Monster Energy money instead of having to put his name across all 3 cars.
Yeah, the Herbst money and the Monster Energy money.
Exactly. So, but here's the question. He's come in, he's run a handful of Cup Series races, and while he hasn't torched the place, he's certainly more than held his own.
He had a shot to win Talladega last year. Coming off of 4, he was looking at the flag.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're talking about a kid who has shown flashes of talent, and if you can get him into the right car, for Motorsports, maybe. And the only reason I bring up Front Row Motorsports is because you just mentioned it. Mm-hmm. Riley Herbst has become a Ford Performance driver.
Sure.
How much more can Ford Performance lose? They're losing 3 cars at the Cup Series level automatically. They're only going to retain 1 that we know of.
So you're at a -2 deficit.
Yeah.
Well, technically, -1. No.
I mean,
-2.
Front Row Motorsports is picking up.
They're picking
one
up
of those.
1, so you're still -2.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So you're losing opportunities in the Cup Series. Do you really want to lose both cars and drivers? I don't think so.
Nope.
Because you ain't got a whole lot in the pipeline.
No, you don't. You don't.
So if I'm Ford Performance, whether or not I work with, as he talked about, his advisors that include Kevin Harvick, I'm either going to try and keep him at the Haas factory team next year, more than likely in the Xfinity Series car for just 1 more year, or I'm going to start steering him over there towards taking one of those front row Motorsports cars because I want to keep him in a blue oval.
Exactly. Ford has got to shape up on how they retain people. But at Silverstone, in qualifying with Q1 over with real quick,
sure,
we may have an apocalypse situation developing.
Okay. I look forward to hearing about this.
Your top 10 going into Q2. Lewis Hamilton, George Russell.
Interesting.
Charles
Mercedes.
Charles Leclerc. Carlos Sainz.
I'm noticing no Red Bulls yet.
Oscar Piastri. Yuki Tsunoda.
Still no Red Bulls.
Alex Albon. Zhou Guanyu.
Still no Red Bulls.
Fernando Alonso. Daniel Ricciardo.
Wow. What the?
Max
a V car beat out a Red Bull?
How about both of them?
What in the world?
Max was only 11th. Your bottom 5 out is Bottas, Magnussen, Ocon, Perez, Gasly.
So one of the Red Bulls is already out, and Kevin Magnussen is quickly trying to quote unquote race his way out of that car. Good grief. Wow.
This poor soul driving the 53 car in practice cannot hit his rear end. He has spun 5 times in practice already. Don't know who, but...
Oh, you want to find out? I'll tell you who it is. Japanese native and NASCAR Whelen Euro Series veteran Kenko Miura is actually the guy in the 53 car. He's here in the States to make his Xfinity Series debut on the streets of Chicago. Miura's run a stateside NASCAR race before, back in 2022 in the Truck Series. This time around, he's with Joey Gase Motorsports driving the number 53 Toyota. You can see that car right there if you're looking at CRN Live on YouTube. Miura's now 44. Let me repeat this. Miura's now 44. This is an age where we're starting to see Cup Series drivers retire. He says, quote, "My dream is to race in the U.S. in the Cup Series, and on my way to fulfill this dream, I am joining the NASCAR Xfinity Series at Chicago. It's going to be a difficult race and a very stimulating challenge. I'll do my best to make the field, and I hope that I can finish somewhere around the top 15. Getting a top 10 would be fantastic. How about just being able to actually start the race?"
That is true.
Because you're going to have to qualify, and if you're spun 5 times in practice already, you're going to have a hard time qualifying.
You are.
By the way, Miura does have a fairly decent history in NASCAR competition in Europe. 66 starts under his belt, 2 wins, best finish of 11th in final points back in 2018. Right now, he's president of a marketing firm while continuing his racing career.
To answer the question of the previous conversation about whether it's the driver or the car, From the looks of it, it's the car, boys and girls, because Logano is only at P22 right now. Barely ahead of Austin Green, which is a third Jordan Anderson car. In coordination with Mike Harmon Racing. Survey says it's the car.
Yeah. Joey, give them a lot of advice, man. Give them a lot of advice.
You better do something.
Yeah, they've got to do something, for the love. All right, speaking of silly season, as we switch back over to open-wheeled cars and talk about Indycar, the third signing of the weekend here is Arrow McLaren. They have announced the signing this week of Christian Lundgaard for the 2025 year. And with no plans to expand to a four-car operation, that means that somebody is OUT, and they will not be back next year. We'll get back to that. For Lundgaard, he currently sits 11th in point standings, running for Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing. He will take over the number 7 car next year, which means he displaces Alexander Rossi. He'll join in with incumbent Pato O'Ward and the newly signed Nolan Siegel as the young trio that'll lead the team into 2025 and the next couple of years. Again, Alexander Rossi is now a free agent for 2025, said that he was trying to work with the team on a long-term deal, but that he and they just could not come to terms. So they've decided mutually to part ways to allow both the team and the driver to look to the future. At this point in time, Alexander Rossi is running out of doors to knock on. And I hate to say that.
Yeah.
He's a former Indy 500 winner with Andretti. But things went south, goes over to Arrow McLaren. One could argue that the Arrow McLaren cars were every single bit as good, if not maybe even a little bit better than the Andretti Global cars that he left.
At one point, yeah.
So you kind of sit there and you wonder, I mean, we've seen him in the top 10. We've talked about the results all year long, and we've seen him more than once in the top 10, but we haven't seen him really be that much of a threat to claim a win.
Right.
I think he'll get a ride for next year, but the question is how good is the equipment going to be?
The question is going to be where?
That's what I'm saying. How good is the equipment going to be?
If I'm Rahal Letterman, now that Lundgaard's over there,
I don't know if I'm signing Alexander Rossi.
I'm going after him.
Would you? Okay.
I would go after him over Yuri Vips.
Well, yeah, putting it that way, sure.
Just saying. I mean, just saying.
And he could do a lot worse than Rahal Letterman Lanigan.
He could.
Dale Coyne. I don't know. I mean, again, I like Alexander Rossi. I do. I like the kid. I think he's a good young driver who just has not really quite lived up to the standards that one would expect from a former Indy 500 champion. And I get how he won it. Yeah, he won it on a gas mileage gamble, but that takes ability as well. Ask the resident driver. It's not that easy to be able to control yourself when you realize, hey, everybody else that's got gas is doing 220 to 230, and I'm stuck here doing 140, 150, hoping and praying that I can make the gas run all the way to the end.
Yeah.
It does take talent to do that.
It does.
Alexander Rossi's got talent. That's not what I'm questioning. My question is can he finish something off? And so far, I haven't really seen it except for that Indy 500. And I think one other race.
Yeah.
That's the only reason I question it. Sauber, meanwhile, they're knocking on doors. They're making calls on behalf of their reserve driver, Teo Pourchaire, who got replaced at Arrow McLaren by the aforementioned Nolan Siegel. After setting his new schedule to race for Arrow McLaren the race for the remainder of this year, now he's left without a ride in any series. One of the calls he made was to Andretti Global. That door got shut pretty quick because the team officially stated they have no plans to add a fourth, even if it is only a part-time entry to accommodate Pourchaire. Now, Sauber, I'll tell you this. When we talked about this last week and before the Andretti Global situation came in, your most likely bet to get him into a car is the aforementioned Dale Coyne Racing. Dale Coyne is basically changing drivers from one race to the next. Heck, Matt might be a candidate before the end of the year to put in a Dale Coyne racing car. I'm not saying it's a good car, okay? I've just said it. I think it's an underperforming and an underwhelming car. Even though the last couple of years that it seemed like that their partnership with Rick Ware Racing was starting to bear fruit.
Dear Dale, I know my way to Lebanon, Tennessee for the season finale. Thank you.
Is it a great car? No. Is it a car? Is it something that's going to get Porsche seat time? Yeah. That's not necessarily the worst idea in the world.
No.
So I don't know whether they've called him or not. Maybe they have. We just haven't found out about it. Time will tell.
Yeah.
One more note here. Producer John, do we need to take a break first?
We can wrap this up and then go to break.
All right, we'll do that. Two-time IndyCar champion Joseph Newgarden making his desire to run a Cup Series car in the future a lot more public. The native of Hendersonville, Tennessee, Newgarden growing up in the heart of NASCAR country. He was actually a guest at the Cup Series race last Sunday. As a matter of fact, he was also one of the honorary race officials, as you can see on CRN Live on YouTube. He was there with his team, Team Penske, the team he drives for in IndyCar. After the race, he was interviewed. He said this, quote, oh, yeah, I'd love to drive a Cup car at some point. You know, I used to go to Bristol as well when I was a kid. Bristol's always been very high on my list. This track and Bristol, probably the two that I went to the most to see Cup races. To be able to do the double, the Coke 600, the Indy 500 someday, that would be a great opportunity. I don't know if it will ever take place. It's really tough nowadays to get that all lined up.
Can I be an honorary race official one day?
Sure.
Please, because I'm kicking everybody out of the booth.
Yeah, there you go. I like it. And tomorrow, when the IndyCar Series officially lines up to get the race rolling at Mid-Ohio, 3 drivers going to suffer grid penalties because of unapproved engine changes. They are Felix Rosenqvist, Marcus Ericsson, and Pietro Fittipaldi. They'll qualify, then they'll move back 6 places before the drop of the green flag because their teams changed engines during testing at Iowa Speedway. That's the pluses and minuses of testing when you have a limitation on your engines. You may end up having to change, and 3 drivers had to. Good luck. 6 spots at Mid-Ohio, not the easiest to make up.
Not at all.
When we come back, update on John Force as promised.
We will be right back with more on the Championship Racing Network. fuel only, fuel only. Go, go, go. We're back to the Championship Racing Network.
Hey, welcome back in. Steve West along with Matt Nicholson, producer John Myers, as we get ready to wrap up already today's show, and we turn our attention to the NHRA. Now, cool thing is that, and we have said this on many, many occasions, and it really doesn't matter what the series is. Could be any of the levels of NASCAR, could be Formula One, could be IndyCar, could be whatever. NHRA. Almost all the teams racing last weekend in Norwalk, Ohio had stickers on their racers, all wishing John Force a quick recovery and return. And there were NASCAR teams that did it as well. Mm-hmm. So really, really cool stuff. I love how the racing community...
One big family.
It really is. I mean, you can sit there and you can make the argument about this series being better than that series, whatever. Here's the thing. That's a fan deal. Mm-hmm. The drivers themselves, we have actually stated this on this show many, many times. The drivers themselves have a whole heck of a lot of respect for the drivers at the top level of other series. We just mentioned Joseph Newgarden and how he kind of covets, if you will, a Cup Series ride. Okay? How many times have we talked about how NASCAR Cup Series drivers and Formula One drivers have watched each other racing on Memorial Day weekend? NASCAR drivers would get up, they'll watch the Monaco Grand Prix, and in the evening, the Formula One drivers, they're all glued watching the Coca-Cola 600.
A lot. If not every one of them.
Again, this is a small community. These drivers know each other. Or they know people who know each other. There's like one note of separation between them.
Right.
They're all close. And they all feel it when something like this happens, especially a 16-time champion like John Force is in the NHRA. But there is good news that came down just yesterday. Word is that he is finally out of neural ICU. Team released a statement, which you can see on CRN Live. Thank you to producer John for doing that, but I'll read part of it for those of you who are listening on the radio or on the app. Quote, less than 2 weeks after drag racing champion John Force suffered a traumatic brain injury, among other injuries that included a fractured sternum and right wrist injury, doctors acknowledged his positive response to treatment. He's been moved out of neural ICU and into acute neuro care. According to his family, the next step likely will be a move to a long-term facility specializing in traumatic brain injury and associated symptoms. A time frame for that move has not yet been determined. Now, as for John Force, again, we're not getting details on this, and I'm not worried about it. That is up to the family if and when they decide they want to give us details. I'm not going to worry about it.
Right.
We wish him nothing but the best.
For sure.
Okay?
For sure.
But it should be noted that he is just now, with the assistance of nurses and doctors, been able to start walking again under his, for the most part, his own power. Mm-hmm. Basically, they're there to make sure he doesn't fall over.
Right.
That goes a long way towards us understanding how hard that hit was. Really, both of those hits. Because, again, we talked about this last weekend. The engine explodes right in front of him. He's going 300-plus miles an hour. Because, remember, we told you he won that particular match. That was the first round of eliminations. He won that match. Engine explodes. He slams into the closest wall. He's in the right lane. He slams into the right wall at 300-plus miles per hour, shoots all the way across the track, slams into the other wall. That's a lot of G-forces for a 75-year-old man. That's a lot of G-forces for me, and I'm about to turn 56. He is the resident driver. You're how old?
39.
You're 39. That's a lot of G-forces for a 39-year-old.
I wish there was a way to see the black box data, which I know you'll probably never see it.
Probably not, no.
See the black box data
to find out exactly the kind of G's
that it hit.
Yeah. That would be eye-opening, I'm sure. But, yeah, it goes a long way to talk about how serious the injuries to him are and were at that time. And the fact that he is getting better, yeah.
That's a very good sign.
It's great news. I love it. I hope to continue to hear many, many good things in very short order. Whether or not that's going to happen on that time frame, I don't know.
For sure.
And we've said this here on the air, and we'll continue to say it, that our thoughts and our prayers go out to John Force and his family when it comes to this. We hope that this isn't how his career comes to an end. We understand that it could, and I don't think anybody would fault him or, say, hey, fight through it and go out your own way. Your health comes first.
Yeah, it's not the way that he deserves to go out.
No.
I'm not saying that he's gone yet.
No.
I'm not.
We're not putting the end of his career here.
Exactly.
We don't know is what we're saying. All I'm saying is that I pray, and I can say this for you, and I think for producer John as well.
Yeah.
We pray that this isn't how this career comes to an end.
That's the wording I'm looking for right there.
So we'll keep you up to date on it as we find out information. Meantime, another business in the NHRA. With the next couple of weeks off, Josh Hart's R&L Carriers Top Fuel team not standing still. They've hired veteran crew chief John Stewart, no, not the comedian on The Daily Show, to come in and co-crew chief for Hart alongside Ron Douglas. This is a team that does have 2 wins, but apparently that's not going to be enough in a tough top fuel division. Stewart brings in over 50 years of experience working in funny car and top fuel engines. He's worked with some of the biggest names in the sport's history, such as Don Prudhomme, Joe Amato, more recently Sean Langdon. Hart said that the team is planning an intensive testing slate before getting back into racing 2 weeks from now out of the Northwest Nationals. They are hoping to improve upon their fortunes. They are not in the top 5, and that does say a lot, even with 2 wins. And then we noted this. We started talking about this, shortly, I would say right around this time, maybe a little bit later last year, right about the time that the U.S. Nationals were looming large on the NHRA schedule. They started talking about doing a big-time renovation project at Indianapolis Raceway Park's drag strip, the home of the NHRA U.S. Nationals. Amongst the things that they're talking about, the replacement of the famed Wally Parks Tower. The replacement tower will still be named after Wally Parks. It'll feature new suites, a new entrance for the fans in the grandstands, a new media and broadcast center, and it will also prompt the moving of the pit area from where it is now to the west side of the grounds. This is going to be a multi-year project. Racing will continue while it goes on, so this will be done in phases. Phase 1 will be the destruction and replacement of the aforementioned Wally Parks Tower. You saw the new one if you were looking at the pictures on CRN Live on YouTube. That's a good-looking tower right there. Mm-hmm. That will start right after the U.S. Nationals here in just a couple of weeks. After they get done with that, should be done in time for the 2025 U.S. Nationals, they say. Phase 2 will be the fan enhancements, new entrance, new restrooms, new ticket office, and other details. And then finally, Phase 3 will be the pit relocation, which will move the pit area for the competitors over to the west side of the facility. Again, Phase 1 should be complete in time for the 2025 U.S. Nationals, Phase 2 by the 2026 event, and then Phase 3 to begin with after that and be done by the 2027 race season. There is apparently a ditch that runs through the grounds, and that is also going to be moved along with the pit area. So that'll help out in drainage if it happens to get into a rain situation.
It's over behind where the current Nitro pit area is. It runs east to west on the access road behind where the staging lanes are to go in.
Yeah. So they're going to take that out, move that to a different location, again, all in order to help several things. I mean, the fan experience is one of them, but they also want to make it a little bit easier for the drivers to be able to move in and around, and the fans to be able to move in and around and engage with the drivers as well. There's a lot of aspects to it, and this is one of those deals. This is one of 3 NHRA-owned locations. They can put their own money into this, as opposed to waiting for the owners. We'll just, throw us in there as drag strip owners. Instead of waiting on us to do it, they don't have to. If they got the money, they can go ahead and do it. And for arguably a centerpiece location, I mean, the U.S. Nationals is considered one of their crown jewels.
Oh, it is the centerpiece location, in my opinion.
Yeah. So they are definitely, and, here's the thing. Kind of like IndyCar, a lot of the NHRA teams are based in and around Indianapolis. Not all of them, but a lot of them are.
Most of them are in Brownsburg, literally within a stone's throw of that track.
Yep. John Force Racing does have did at one time have a satellite location up there, but they're based out of the Southern California area.
They still do.
Okay. One more note here, and this will turn us over to Formula E and wrap things up. There's a lady by the name of Ellie Norman. She's set to join the series front office and become the new chief marketing officer. The current one, Henry Chilcott, who has been in that role the last 4 years, set to seek other opportunities. Norman knows motorsports, but she comes to Formula E from having spent the past 2 years as the chief communications officer for the noted Manchester United Soccer Club, or as they call it in Europe, football, where she handled media relations, public affairs, brand development, and a whole lot more. But I say she knows motorsports because before Man U, she was working in Formula One. She was the chief marketing and communications officer for Formula One for 5 years. Formula E states they want Norman to help expand the footprint of the series and enhance fan engagement. This is something that I have to say IndyCar does pretty good. It's something that I think Formula One and I would say also Formula E could be doing a better job at.
I would concur with that, yeah.
Okay, I get it. Formula One is, around the world, the biggest spectator sport when it comes to motorsports. I understand that. But you got all these drivers who they're complaining about something like being introduced one by one in Las Vegas. Why are you worried about that? Shouldn't you want your fans to be able to see you? Mm-hmm. It's little things like that, man. Just little things like that just make me wonder whether or not Formula One drivers really care that much about the fans. And I say that carefully because I don't really want to denigrate them, but at the same time, if you're complaining about driver introductions, I think you need to look at a bigger picture.
That you do.
Yeah, Mark, I understand. IRP does need a facelift. Yeah. I don't know what's going to happen with the oval. We haven't heard anything about that.
Everything I've seen, the oval is not moving.
Okay.
Everything's going to stay there. They will.
We don't even know whether they're planning on a repave, though. I mean, it's something as simple as that.
No, don't touch it.
Okay.
Good racing there. Leave it.
All right. Leave it. I like it. All right. Well, that wraps it up. We should be back to our regular schedule this week. I haven't seen or heard anything that says that we shouldn't be on Wednesday. So Crossed Flags podcast, once again, coming up on Wednesday. Hope you're able to check that out when it comes up and make sure that you view it and subscribe, please. We're always asking about that. If you haven't subscribed for it already, please do. We're noting that we're up to 102 subscribers on the CRN Live on YouTube page. We appreciate that. Keep it coming. Mm-hmm. We like that a lot. Thank you very much for the support. So between Crossed Flags and, of course, this show, CRN Live, we'll talk to you on Wednesday and again next Saturday right here on the Championship Racing Network. Whatever it is that you got planned for the rest of this weekend, be safe, be careful, and most of all, enjoy it and stay cool because, good grief, it's hot out there. I know it is down here, and it's supposed to be in Chicago. I mean, I made the joke earlier on. It was cloudy with a chance of bullets in Chicago. I guarantee you it's cloudy with a whole lot of sweating going on. So be cool. Have a good time. We'll talk to you Wednesday and next Saturday.
This has been a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.